My name is Clara Dubois, and 6 weeks ago, I was sitting alone in a crowded airport lounge after my three closest friends abandoned me, literally leaving me behind for a more comfortable seat. Yesterday, midway through that very flight, those three friends were publicly humiliated by the captain, moved from their coveted business class seats, and relegated to the very back row of the aircraft. Meanwhile, I was sipping vintage champagne in a private first-class suite they did not even know existed, enjoying the silence only the owner of the airline can command. They believed my kindness was cheap. They did not realize my competence was priceless. For nearly a decade, my friendship with Olivia, Chloe, and Danielle was characterized by a distinct and growing financial imbalance. I grew up with a background in logistics and private asset management, utilizing my initial capital to establish and build a specialized boutique airline, Astra Air, which services exclusive international and high-yield executive routes across 3 continents. I maintain my ownership strictly anonymous, operating through a series of investment trusts and holding companies, preferring to operate quietly in the background while they focused on their very public, but ultimately shallow, careers in social media influencing and regional marketing. They were constantly chasing visible status, relying on loud consumption, branded clothes, and public displays of wealth, while I valued discreet wealth and strategic control. Whenever we traveled, I would book all the reservations, manage the complex international itinerants, pay the upfront costs, and they would always find a reason to forget to repay their portion until I discreetly sent a formal, 3-week overdue invoice. I paid for the expensive dinners, the group gifts, the hotel upgrades, and the excess baggage fees. My consistent, quiet generosity they interpreted not as genuine friendship, but as my assigned secondary role as their passive, quiet financier. They believed I was simply accustomed to a more modest life, an assumption that was about to lead to their total undoing on my own infrastructure. The injustice was delivered with smug arrogance, right at the check-in gate. We were traveling to a major industry conference in Milan, a critical trip I had meticulously planned and paid for in full, booking all 4 of us in the standard economy cabin to keep the costs reasonable and avoid suspicion. As we stood at the Astra Air check-in desk for Flight 419, they pulled out new, sleek business class boarding passes, showing off their seats in the exclusive forward cabin. Mine, however, was clearly labeled economy. Olivia, the ringleader and lead social media personality, leaned in with a conspiratorial whisper, not bothering to lower her voice so the check-in agent could hear. "Oh, honey, don't worry about it," she said, tapping my economy pass with a manicured nail. "We upgraded last week. It was an executive decision, really. You know how it is. We really need the space to prep for the conference, practice our pitches, and network in business class. And you're so good at sleeping anywhere. Besides, you're used to the back of the plane." Chloe nodded, adding a sneer. "Yes, darling. You're our grounded friend after all. We need the networking in business class to elevate our brand. We'll wave when we board." They abandoned me right there, walking away toward a private lounge, laughing at my expense, confident that I would simply accept my fate as the relegated, passive friend who always paid the bill. Have you ever had a trusted friend deliberately embarrass or exclude you in public, simply because they assumed you were too weak or too poor to push back? The realization that you were never truly valued cuts deeper than any financial loss. It exposes the fragile foundation of the entire relationship. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I watched them disappear into the lounge's velvet curtain. I felt the familiar sting of betrayal, but this time, it was quickly replaced by a cold, surgical focus that my professional life demanded. My phase of struggle was not about affording an upgrade. It was about maintaining my composure and resisting the urge to reveal my true, explosive identity immediately. I took a slow, deep breath and pulled out my secure satellite phone. The airport personnel and the check-in agents, who knew me only as the company's anonymous head of oversight and the one who signed off on multi-million-dollar contracts, watched me with nervous, immediate respect. My first call was to my head of operations, Mr. Davies, who was in the corporate office. "Astra 419, I stated, my voice low and steady. "Confirming all flight details. I am boarding now."
Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, turn on bell notification to stay updated for more revenge stories.
I also need to verify the passenger manifest, specifically passengers Olivia Jensen, Chloe Vance, no relation, thankfully, and Danielle Soto. Nota necessary, immediate seat correction, due to a critical booking error that needs to be remedied mid-flight. The turning point was the realization that I didn't need to fight them or even argue. I held the operational keys to their entire travel experience, their comfort, and their dignity. The core of my plan was simple. Use my absolute corporate authority to deliver justice precisely where their arrogance was at its peak. Mid-air, in front of the dozens of high-net-worth passengers they had been trying to impress. My operational director confirmed that the flight was boarding and that the three women were seated in the front section of the business class cabin, already smugly consuming their premium pre-flight drinks. I instructed him to prepare the lead cabin crew for an immediate non-negotiable directive: the Omega Protocol for owner security. The pilot, Captain Eva Rostova, a seasoned veteran of Astra Air, was immediately contacted and informed that the anonymous majority owner of the airline was boarding the flight and required an immediate first-class transfer due to heightened, unforeseen security protocols. I then calmly walked to the gate, handed my economy pass to the flustered agent, who was already receiving new instructions on her headset, and boarded the plane with the quiet dignity of someone who not only owns the destination, but the vehicle carrying them there. The plan moved into systematic motion as the plane reached its cruising altitude. I deliberately stayed in my economy seat for the first hour, reading a high-level report on fleet maintenance, deliberately observing the business class cabin. My three friends were visibly enjoying themselves, clinking glasses, taking selfies for their feeds, and making loud, distracting calls on the in-flight Wi-Fi, clearly reveling in their self-importance. I waited until the dinner service was concluding and the cabin was settling into the long hall. I watched them settle in, completely comfortable in the luxury they had acquired through financial deceit and social exclusion. Then, I activated the next phase. I pressed the call button and asked the flight attendant, who immediately recognized me from the company training videos, to deliver a simple, sealed note to the captain. The note read only, "Execute Directive Omega. Commence public announcement." The climax arrived 10 minutes later. The cabin lights dimmed slightly, and Captain Rostova's voice, smooth, professional, and booming with authority, came over the intercom, cutting through the low background music. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our cruising altitude. On behalf of Astra Air, I have a very special announcement to make. We are honored and delighted to have the founder and majority shareholder of Astra Air, the woman whose vision created this entire enterprise, flying with us today. Please join me in welcoming Miss Clara Dubois." The entire business class cabin went dead silent. The three women, hearing my full name, froze instantly, their expensive champagne flutes suspended mid-air in front of their faces. Two impeccably dressed flight attendants walked directly down the aisle to my economy seat. "Miss Dubois," one said with a deep, respectful smile, "the first-class private suite is prepared for you. We apologize profoundly for the initial misallocation." As I rose to leave, the other flight attendant continued, walking straight toward the front of the business class cabin, holding a discreet clipboard. "We also must apologize to passengers Olivia Jensen, Chloe Vance, and Danielle Soto," she announced clearly, her voice carrying over the stunned silence. "There was an unfortunate critical error in your original booking. Your purchased economy tickets were incorrectly processed as business class. We are required to return you to your lawfully purchased seats immediately." I paused at the entrance to the opulent private first-class suite. Olivia, Chloe, and Danielle, suddenly pale, their composure utterly destroyed, were being directed by the staff, their bags being swiftly removed from the overhead bins. I saw the look of absolute public humiliation on their faces as they were paraded past dozens of stunned, silent passengers, destined for the cramped back row of the aircraft, the place they claimed I belonged. I offered them a brief, polite, indifferent nod. I didn't say a single word. I simply entered the private suite, where I was immediately handed a perfectly chilled glass of Bollinger and a menu for my personal chef. The silence that followed was the sound of a perfectly executed, high-altitude checkmate and the end of a toxic friendship. I spent the remainder of the flight in my private suite, which included a full bed, a personal attendant, and satellite access, finalizing my merger documentation in quiet comfort. I did not see the three women again, and I never will. Their humiliation was public, precise, and entirely earned. They tried to use my perceived lack of status to elevate themselves, but they forgot the golden rule of business. True power is often silent, patient, and owns the entire infrastructure you are currently relying on. I learned that day that true friendship is built on mutual respect, not finance, and that the greatest luxury is the peace of mind that comes with complete, strategic, financial control. I left them in the back of the plane, not out of malice, but because that is where they deserved to finish their journey. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to enjoy more revenge and inspiring stories like this one. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and tell us what you think about this story.
Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Turn on bell notification to stay updated for more revenge stories.